See, my channel is the best channel. 2 seconds. I got people in it. Well, hello, whoever's in here. You're probably a subscriber. Just to know that I went on the air, you're probably a subscriber or subscribers, whoever you are. I'm Uncle Birch. You probably know that because you're on my channel. Hello, Kim. And you're on my channel, so you already know. Teach me some witchcraft. That's my thing. That's what I do. I do it even in my time off. Hey, Uncle Birch, you called your shop. Is the number still the same? No, Mario. Had somebody spam bombed the Sacred Grove main address. I'm in the process of changing my email address. But if you need to get a hold of me, you need to get a hold of me at witchschool@gmail.com. witchschool@gmail.com. I had a similar problem with the phone. It's pretty easy to do if you get a hater out there to fill up the voicemail with gibberish and stuff. So the phone's turned off. I'll hopefully get a new number for the shop right now. Kind of in transition. But witchschool@gmail.com. That's the best way to get a hold of me right now. Sacred Grove email is a big mess. As it's a Hotmail address. It's almost as old as having an AOL email. And pretty obsolete. I still use that for my PayPal address, but it's not a good communication method, Mario. And I think you've got an order. I know. I think I'm working on your order, Mario. You sound familiar. And those of you that do order from the Sacred Groves, it's like I closed my mortar shop almost 4 years ago now. It's all me. I do everything. Everything is done by me. As such, it takes longer. I adhere to magical timing in my brewing, and I don't keep back stock. I brew in your name. So whatever you got in there, Mario, I'm brewing that in your name, not for some other schmuck. As such, it takes longer. So do not order from me if you're in a hurry. If you are in a hurry, you got a working plan or something like that, you can always drop me a note. Do it twice. Drop me a note and send me an email. Make sure you get my attention, and I can at least move you to the front of the line, because I have to handle orders in the order they were received and the magical timing and all that stuff, and I'm the only one doing it. So just take a while, but if you need me to speed it up, there's a couple steps I can do. Oh, thank you, Mario. Yeah, see, I'm pretty sure you've had other orders. I recognized your name, so I'm glad the stuff that you got from me last time worked out. Hi, I'm Uncle Birch. You probably know that because you're on my channel. I took about 2 years off from teaching my year-in-a-day course in witchcraft, preferring to do the more downloadable ones for people to download the classes and pay me. And I maybe hear from them, maybe not. But now I'm doing the year-in-a-day courses, and I started one in March, and that filled up. And then everybody's chomping at the bit for, when's next class? So I started one May 1st, belting. That one filled up, and then everybody's chomping at the bit for another class. So we're following the wheel of the year here. So far, the key points of the wheel of the year here, I'm starting a new class. So the next one's starting August 1st. It's on this channel. I didn't set it up as my featured video yet, and you need to get around to that. But some details on that class. It's here on this channel. So, one of the things that I've been doing to make sure that my teaching muscles are still strong is I do this kind of thing, the Ask Uncle Birch thing. I do it on my channel, but then I've been doing it randomly on some total noob witch channels. People that don't know me, I don't know them. They don't know anything fucking about me, just to keep my teaching muscles strong, to be prepared to answer questions from random witches all over the world. The best way to learn witchcraft, at the very least, because the only thing that I've really taught is to teach it. I prefer you know what you're talking about before you teach it. But you learn so much. People ask you things which I never thought of. Just the last time that I did this on this channel, somebody came up with an idea, using baneful magic for healing. And I started to say, no, you can't use baneful magic for healing. But then, the entirety of Western medicine is the science of using poisons for cures. And the best thing they've come up with cancer so far is to poison the entire body to kill the cancer, and then hopefully the body can regrow that shit back, roughly, to, simplify things. But baneful medicine is being used for cures. So that kind of caused me pause. I've been thinking about that since the last time I did that. It was a hell of a good question. So people ask questions that you never thought of before. I've been in a very long time, so I've thought of most of those things. But this kind of thing, people give me new ideas. I do this as a service to the community. Teaching, I get paid to teach. My job's to teach. My living is teaching. But I also do some free stuff. Like, this whole channel, everything on this channel is free. And then I do this. You're able to pick my brain for free. I never had anything like that when I was a kid. And if I did, I had to go there. I couldn't just, sit on the toilet and learn witchcraft. You kids got it easy. Could you explain a bit about practicing astral projection? Well, absolutely. Now, the basics of astral projection is a meditation process where you weigh your body down. You usually start at your head or start at your feet, different schools, where you visualize your body being, a lead weight. You just weight it down to where you just feel it pressing against the floor all the way up to the other end. And then the meditative process is the rest of you stands up, out of your body, and then you go places. There are herbs and things that can help this. Mugwort's always good for all things like this. But the thing I always like to stress when this idea comes up, when the New Age movement came about, and I even forget her name now, but she was so popular. This one woman that was an actress that became a New Age, pop star, that brought astral projection to the mainstream. And then after that, all elements of the New Age regarding astral projection talk about going to the astral plane. I learned a very complicated ladder of astral planes. And in some aspects of magic, you'd throw something way high up here onto this highest level of the astral ladder, if you will. And then down here, destroy the physical representation down here on Earth, destroy the physical representation of that thing, that symbol that we put up here, and then the trickle down, flopping back and forth between opposites on the rungs of the astral ladder, cause force to be implemented. And then when this magic arrives in our world, it arrives with force. These were astral planes, and on each plane existed a different ethereal representation of those things that existed in physical reality. So basically what I'm saying is it's much more complicated than most people are thinking. Good question. That's my first question. Uncle Birch, that's random questions. We got a question about magic, ceremonial magic, hoodoo, conjure. I've even been asked questions about voodoo. I'm shocked. I knew I said some shit, and then I went and looked it up, double checked what I said, and I was right. So there are a few magics that I don't know something about, whether I'm a practitioner of that magic or not. I'm running out of worlds to conquer. So I'll probably have something to say. May not answer your question, or may I answer half the question. It's a deeper philosophical teaching method. Tanya, have you heard of people having a detox effect when doing a cleansing or healing spell? Yes. People kind of they think cleansing healing spells being on objects and houses and things like that, but then there's the people that exist in those, and they've probably picked up those same things. There are some internal cleansing potions, if you will, that in addition to the curse removal kind of stuff that you're ingesting, they also cause you to vomit. The vomiting is the purging of those things inside you, and a detox effect is rather similar to that. Removing those things, even though those things are bad things, negativity in your life and stuff like that. They may have been there for a while, and you may have developed a spiritual addiction of a kind. So yeah, they're cleansings. When cleansing bring on those feelings of detox and stuff like that, well, there's something to look at. There's something maybe deeper than the original cleansing that you were going for, and you might want to be looking for a curse or something like that. But cleansing can often, deal with those kind of problems as well. But yeah, it does happen. People throwing up, even if they're not taking an internal potion to make themselves throw up, when people are cleansing or removing curses and stuff like that, that kind of shit happens. It absolutely does. A good question, Tanya. I saw another question. If you're new to the game, here's how we play it. Please try not to ask me another question while I'm answering a question. It's hard because you don't know when people are posting. Best thing that people have said is to copy your question so you can paste it again after I've missed it several times. Try not to be long-winded because they pop up in this little balloon that quickly fades from the screen. If your question is too long, there's probably a way to retrieve it, but I don't know how, and it would just screw me up. So try to be short, brief, to the point. Try not to ask me a question when I'm answering a question. It's been a lovely audience so far.
Do you have any parting gifts?
Not yet, because we're not parting yet. John T. familiar with Hispanic folklore referring to La Chusa. All right, you got me on that one. I don't know La Chusa. I practice some traditions that cross over the Afro-Caribbean kind of crossover, so they have elements of the Latino and elements of the African. And I have come to know Santa Muerte or Santissima, but no, you got me on that one. Don't know that one. A lot of things about our neighbors right over there that I don't know about their magic, but I do recognize where a lot of South American magics influenced American magics, color magic, candle magics, that kind of thing. When we see a spell where we're doing a love spell on a female and we use pink, and we're doing a love spell on a male and we use blue, that color combination comes from south of the border. That was their addition to the thing. But it's it's a tradition that goes so far back and has influenced so many things that it is the common thing that we see when babies are born. Boys' rooms are blue and girls' rooms are pink. We hand out pink cigars and blue cigars. So we see these craft things are usually represented in some mundane form right in our fucking place. But I have seen that, I do believe that originally that's where that color combination thing first comes into being. And it makes sense because for Western magic, West is water, water rules love. And blues make sense in that. Pinks make sense for a specific target. But, so hopefully I answered a different question that you didn't have. If I can't answer the question you have, maybe you send me a message and inform me about that, and then I'll be sweet with it. How important is honesty in any backward in relationship to growth? Kinetic wisdom asked that. I have a video on here. It's called Magical Rapport. Watch that. Talk about that. I'll talk about that some more. It's really important not to lie. You may think you're alone. You may not be in a spiritual space. Your gods are watching. Your spirits, your eguns, your ancestors are watching. They're listening to everything you say. Word vibrations that go into the universe. And if your words mean nothing, your magic means nothing when you speak those words magically. The other side will not take you seriously. Honesty, perhaps brutal honesty at times. Learn how to be subtle and not piss people off with your honesty. But honesty's paramount, I think, in magic, and when you're working with things on the other side. If you're a liar, they all know it. Why should they take you seriously? And I've always gone one further. It's like when I say something, said it on a fucking video or something like that, my obligation is to then go out into the world and make that thing become truth. If it wasn't quite true, I need to manifest that thing that I just uttered and make it be true, because that's what I want my spirits, my eguns, my gods and my goddesses to do when I utter a thing in the universe. I want them to make that thing be true. And part of the process is me doing that too. I follow up on stuff. Sometimes I find myself in these situations like here uttering shit that I have no business knowing. But I seem to utter it from a place of knowing, as part of myself is saying to myself, what the fuck are you talking about, Birch? I don't know that. Way back when I was a co-host on Candela's Corner, somebody asked how to make holy water one time. And I had a couple drinks, and next thing you know, I babbled off a bunch of shit. And I was saying to myself, dude, you don't know how to make holy water? What are you fucking saying? When I looked it up later, sure enough, I knew how to make holy water. Subconsciously, up in the witch mind here, I'd learned how to make holy water the first time that I read the Greater Key of Solomon. And that method of making holy water is still the traditional method in Catholic churches worldwide to this day, and a variation of that is the Gardnerian and British traditional witchcraft method of making our ritual water on the altar. I was right, word for word, but sometimes I fact check myself after I speak. But when it comes to witchcraft, you know, I may miss some points here and there, but whenever I check it, it turns out I was right. So that was the thing. I saw a couple people thanking me. Apparently I answered that question. I am Uncle Birch, and answering random questions on witchcraft and magic. That's what I do. Got a new course coming up August 1st, and just keeping my teaching muscles strong. How can one protect oneself when sending something back to somebody with force? Something year in a day. Okay, no. Actually, I want to see that. Can I see that? Don't know how to see the messages that happen. Protect yourself. This is something that the Wiccans seem to miss. Wicca was the dominant force in witchcraft and magic for most of my life, and it is not so anymore. We were just talking about some of the Latino groups out there. Yeah, they might not. They're probably not going to use the word witchcraft. It's still a bad word there, but they're doing a lot of the same stuff. And then we got the African traditional religions. We got hoodoo, and we got conjuring. A lot of people at the party now that don't have your Wiccan read. They don't talk about your threefold law. They give zero fucks about any of that stuff. Those people, the ones that I've seen, they seem to have complex cleansing rituals involved with throwing that kind of shit out. They don't talk about it as much, but there seems to be some belief in there that some of that shit can be reflected back. Or maybe your opponent on the other side has a shield up or something like that. It's going to bounce back. But whatever the case, they throw and then they cleanse. They throw and immediately cleanse. Florida water is a really common way of doing that. The white bath is huge for that kind of thing, and for all negativities and things. You can look up how to make a white bath on the internet, and 4 or 5 different recipes tend to show up first, and I've compared them, and they vary in a couple of ingredients here and there, and it's not a fucking big deal where they vary. But you can find that. Florida water's one. What's it? Hoyt's cologne used for that kind of thing. And then even those weird cleansing products that we got from the Mexican market, the purple shit.
Yeah, there's the
Violet water,
gardenia water,
orange water.
These are the three I use.
These kind of things. You find them in a Mexican market. And most of the ones I've ever been to have that. You know, if they don't have a Botanica in the back, they always have a shelf that's almost a Botanica with a bunch of stuff that you might need to pick up if you don't have an occult store near you. But those kind of things. So they throw and then they take a cleansing bath, you know, that night right away. Now me, I believe in mentally programming the shields that I throw up. And when I throw up my shields have a mental program built in them not to allow anything to be reflected back. Not my own stuff or anything, or if I put my shields up to transform the energy coming in, it's like you transform the energy coming back. Now, if you don't wrap your head around what I just said, it's be complicated. I always think of, I even think of Star Trek to describe magical processes. When the Enterprise fires a shot, the shields don't go down. The old Enterprise shields went down for a brief second, but not Star Trek Next Generation. The weapons are being fired at the same modulation as the shields, allowing the weapon to pass through the shields without lowering the shields. Now, I believe that goes for magic. If I send my shit out, it has my vibration attached to it. If there's any blowback, unless I program my shields specifically to deal with that, those kind of things would come through my shields, because my shields aren't programmed to keep my shit from going out. And I always, I tend to program my shields for that anyway. It's like, my shit needs to go out. They need to be able to accept the things that I want to come in and either repel or ground or transform those things that I wouldn't want to come in. And just like that, you program my shields in that language. And my shields are going to know what are the things I would not want to let in to my house. I guess that was a good question because I had a lot to say on that. So we're doing Ask Uncle Birch. Give it a shot. Try not to ask me a question when I'm answering a question. Try not to be too long-winded. That last question, I missed a little bit of it. Something about a year and a day. Might have been one of my students in a year and a day course, for all I know. Is ceremonial magic more or less powerful than witchcraft? Neither, really. It's more complicated. It's more complicated, and in that, it might be more. I always say, go big or go home. The more things that the more magics you have in that magic you're going to do, the more obstacles you're going to overcome. The more resistance you're going to pass through. I always hated it when I was back in the brick and mortar and somebody come in with a problem and I, walk around and say, okay, well, you get this and you do this, that, and the other to that, and then you grab this and you do this, that, the other to that. And I've given them, I've done a couple $100 worth of witchcraft teaching at that point and taken them around the shop, and they've got maybe $20 worth of stuff that they have to, buy to do that spell. They go, well, could I just do it with the candle? Yeah, you could. You could in a namby-pamby way, in a lesser way, in a go small and go home way. Yeah, you could have an effect on that, but you want to accomplish the thing that you came in here and asked me about accomplishing. It's like when I talk to a client, I have gauged their experience level. I've gauged their ability to do something in the conversation. I know what components to give. If they're an experienced witch, yeah, I might have sent them out the door with a candle and less instructions. But if I got you a candle, a rock, an oil, an incense, some stuff to chant in Greek, that's what was necessary to work your will by my professional assessment of your skills. And then they would always try and nickel and dime and cut corners and wonder why they got a half-ass return on their half-ass spell. Go big or go home. So in that, ceremonialists are going big. In that, maybe it might be sometimes. They're a lot harder to accomplish, a lot more exacting, a lot more limiting. You find yourself not being able to do a certain magic at a certain time because of the limitation. Witchcraft is a lot more malleable. I'm often saying on these noob sites out there, we want to take the reins, not the ride. There's the billions of different energies flying into our planet from all over the universe. And we know about astrology and astronomy and that kind of thing. We don't want to be ruled by those energies. We want to rule those energies and make those energies push ourselves. I talk about our ancestors long ago figured out how to voyage across the sea in ships and a broad sail. Now, as long as the wind was at your back, you travel across the sea. If the wind shifted, you had to drop sails and sit there 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 and wait for a favorable wind to come up. Then one day, somebody's ancestors developed this triangular shield, or triangular, what am I saying? Sail, triangular sail, which is the standard to this day. Our sailboats tend to have those triangular sails because the triangular sail can sail into the wind. You angle the sail and use the wind against it to project it. I'm no sailor, but I understand how it works. That changes everything. Maybe we need to use a triangular sail sigil in our magic. That's gold. I just gave you gold right there. Triangular sail sigil in your magic. That is the purpose of the triangular sail, to sail into resistance and use resistance to propel it into that resistance. Much more brilliant idea. There was a question I answered somewhere in there. So we're doing Ask Uncle Birch. Go ahead and give it a shot. Good idea to copy your questions so you can paste it later if I missed it or if I was asking or answering another question. Quite a crowd in here. Hello, Lisa. I know you, Lisa. What are the best ways to protect yourself from the evil eye? Well, first of all, the evil eye. That's what those things. I think that's what they're called. You know, the little. It's Middle Eastern. Marta's family tends to have them too. The little evil eye things. Aren't they just called the evil eyes? The little glass thing with eye in it.
I don't really know what they probably have a name. But,
Probably have a name, but these little glass eye looking things all over the world. The Hamza, which also that's Middle Eastern in origin. There's good charms. The Chimaruta. Can't beat the sprig of rue. Get some rue. Those are some of the best ways. There was some confusion. Like I originally, my father taught me when I was 10 years old, we throw the evil eye like this, left hand under the table. Repel the evil eye like this. Over time that gets blurred. And there's lots of versions where you're sending, well, probably left hand, you're sending the evil eye like this. But that's also the counter spell for the evil eye. I think Dad was right. I think this is for sending the evil eye. This is for repelling the evil eye. Now repelling it would be the right hand under a table and stuff. The evil eye tends to be a spell that all, I'm not going to say Latino, I'm going to say Latin women worldwide somehow know how to send, especially once they reach a certain age. All old Latino women and women and Italian women, they all know how to do this. And this thing right here comes into our popular culture from Ronnie James Dio, who was Italian. And it was something that his grandmother used to do at other old women in the market. His grandmother was throwing the evil eye all the goddamn time, and he picked this up and brought it into rock and roll. And that's how he got the goddamn thing. It is the figure hand of Italian witchcraft, and the figure hand. That's absolutely a good piece of jewelry for repelling the evil eye as well. Right. Forgot who that was that asked the question. Good question. We're doing Ask Uncle Birch. Having a good old time. So I'm preparing for my next class August 1st. And I do this by constantly exposing myself to the world to ask different questions. What difference between hoodoo and voodoo? Voodoo is a religion, an African traditional religion, and hoodoo is not. Hoodoo is not.
Mostly Haiti.
Yeah, and originally Haitian. So one of those
Voodoo
Afro.
uses any of the psalms or any of that stuff.
Yeah.
Voodoo is so heavy.
Yeah, I think New Orleans hoodoo, hoodoo when it comes into, or I'm sorry, voodoo comes into America. The Orishas get equated with the saints, which also seems to happen in some versions
I
of
don't think voodoo uses Orishas at all.
voodoo. Yeah, voodoo.
I think they have a different setup.
Yeah, there are some forms in New Orleans that have the Orishas equated with the saints. Some forms of Apollo do that. Santeria does that a lot. But there's different versions. But so they have they have Orishas. Orishas are kind of like gods, and kind of not. Kind of. I don't even know. Spirits of pieces of the land. Still, what we would call, similar to pagan gods. But that's the basic difference is they're going to have similar beliefs because of their African connections. But hoodoo is folk magic, African-based.
It's closer to Catholicism than anything
Yeah.
else.
Yeah, and hoodoo's closer to Catholicism. A lot of their practitioners consider themselves Baptist now too. But it's basically folk magic. African-based folk magic, but as folk magic, it gets over here in the melting pot of America. And having studied hoodoo and having studied conjure, I always see where the different elements of every magic that I'm working with come from, and that always fascinates me. Hoodoo's borrowed from all kinds of things that are not African in origin, all the way back to some Solomonic magics, where some of the hoodoo I was being taught in Cat Ironwood's courses, we were incorporating the seals of Solomon into mojo bags. Clearly not traditional hoodoo, but is a thing that witches all over the world have been borrowing. At least till we know, we can see in the 1700s when Charles Leland was studying the witches of Tuscany, he found that was one of the texts that they were actively studying at the time. One of those places where we have more similarities than we have differences. Many types of magic and witchcraft and folk magic all over the world have seen fit to borrow from ceremonial magics, and the origins of the ceremonial magics being the Solomons, the Agrippas, the Abramelins, this kind of thing. These are very well established magics, and a lot of them tended to be working on Solomon was a king, but a lot of the magicians of those days worked for kings and queens and people in power, and as such they developed strains of magic that were not disrupted, that were not, the books were not burned, their practices were not destroyed. They developed many unique practices along the way, but the origins of their practices were never disrupted. And maybe that's why witches and folk magicians all over the world borrow from those things, because they are some of the most intact magical strains on the planet. And I borrow from them as well. Great question, whoever the hell you were. Good crowd in here. Might have to run downstairs and something really quick, but I'll be right back if I do. You need me to grab anything if I do go down there? No? All right. Let's see. How can I learn your awesome transmutation sigil? Well, I'm coming from an old school where they taught that search for knowledge brings wisdom. I make people search for things sometimes. I I got a name for myself right now. You can Google Uncle Birch and find me really easily, but I always kept this channel kind of vague and off the radar. You know, Freak Phil 1309 and nothing in the description that says anything about witchcraft and magic, you know, made it a little harder to find than everybody that just puts witchcraft and magic all over their fucking title and an easy name to remember. Because I didn't want it to be easy to find originally. That was, this thing took on a whole life of its own. As such, we've been relatively free of trolls here, knock on wood. There's probably only 5 people I ever banned from this channel. And this channel's like 10 years old. I don't think anybody that I know out there of my colleagues can say that, and maybe that's because I remained a little bit hidden and harder to find. So as such, the transmutation sigil, or actually the transformation sigil, I made harder to find. It's spread out between several videos, and you gotta read between the lines to see how it's done. Between I believe it's banishing poverty or transforming poverty on this channel, and psychic self-defense shields up. A crafty witch can piece that together and come up with a method for doing that, for using the transformation sigil. Now you want to go big or go home? Well, you need to go to gumroad.com/witchschool, WITHSKEWL, where I have this little video called Feeding on Your Enemies. Feeding on Your Enemies, I give the entire full-blown, partially ceremonial magic ritual for the creation of that sigil. A couple crafty people have pointed out, it's like, well, look, you got Pluto, you got Saturn, you got Mars, you got the moon. I'm not sure how exactly that's causing transformation to happen. Well, that's because the creation of the sigil was not shown. Me creating that into a sigil was a larger ritual to create that sigil, and the fully blown, I mean, the smaller version for free, if you can piece it together here on this channel, will work for you. But if you really want to feed on your enemies, if you want to let people send you crap, you know, let people throw lemons that you're magically turning into lemonade and chugging, having people do your magic for you, you really want to do that, it might cost you. I think it's only like $30 or something. It's not expensive. Hell of a fucking spell. Gumroad.com/witchschool and feeding on your enemies. I'll be right back. Hello, big dog. All right, hopefully nobody asked me stuff while I was gone, because it's off the screen now. Oh, man. People just waking up, huh? Just doubled my audience here. I'm Uncle Birch. You probably know that. We're on my channel. I'm going to skip the formalities. You know why I'm here. I teach witchcraft. Obsessed with it, clearly. Doing it a very long time. Lucky for me, the world changed to where you can make a living as a witch. Can one be considered an enemy if you've never met in person? God, I almost think that's a no-brainer. I keep trying to explain that on these new witch sites. People want to post pictures of their spells, their books of shadows, their tools, what have you. First of all, you don't post pictures of your fucking spells that you're doing unless you want them to be ruined by all these fucking people out there. Unless you've got a transformation sigil on that spell. People post pictures of their books of shadows and their tools. Now, me, if I was a bad witch, and I don't know, is it before coffee? It might be a bad witch. I'm gonna get those pictures. I'm gonna take those pictures. Those pictures are magical links to you. And not only are they magical links to you, they're probably inside your circle. Bypassing all of your protections, everything you came up with, you did the whole transformation shield. But I'm in your circle. I've got a link right in. I've got a link to your Book of Shadows. I got a link to your Thame. I can make your Thame turn on you and cut you. Don't be stupid, kids. This is the internet. You've run into trolls, right? In these magical groups everywhere on the internet, well, we have trolls. Trolls with wands and thames and spells and shit. People that are dicks. People that they may be using the transformation sigil that I gave them to transform all the anger that you're throwing at them into their personal will. There's assholes out here. Don't just trust. If you hear anybody else say this, they stole it from me and that's fine. Perfect trust means learning who to trust. And I ain't perfect with that either. It's a lifetime of work. But willy-nilly trusting every motherfucker out there on the internet? No, man, no. Yeah, I think I posted this when I did a big long-winded thing on one of these sites. Like, if you invite me over for dinner, I'm probably gonna go to the bathroom at some point and look for your brush, some fingernail clippings in the waste basket. You'd be surprised how easy it is to find a pubic hair if you're looking for it. And I'm probably gonna put that in a file. Even though we're friends, someday we might not be. And then it's gonna be harder to get in your house. And I'm gonna go to my filing cabinet over there where I put your personal links. I don't have that filing cabinet right now, but I used to. I used to have a filing cabinet like that. That's the kind of witch I am. Because I know someday it might not be all nice and pretty. Someday you might turn on me. Happens all the fucking time. So I want to get something linked to you while I can, just in case, just to have that. Now, that's me, but I ain't the only one that thinks like that. But nowadays, man, even if your profile's set to private, I can get your picture. I can get your picture right there off the internet. It used to be you got a person's picture and you're going to use that for magic. You didn't want to really damage that picture because you might want to use it again. But I could print up countless pictures of you and draw on them and put things on them and bury them in stuff and burn them and print up another one next time I want to do something to you. It's too easy to get a magical link out there. You need to try and play safe out there, kids. Thank you for your question. That led me onto that tangent. Hopefully it has something to do with your question. I'm Uncle Birch. I'm answering questions about magic, witchcraft, other kinds of magic, what have you. I might answer you. I'm not. So far, you bat 1,000. I think I answered. Oh, there was one guy I didn't know. I didn't have an answer to that question, but a Latino deity of some kind, or it could have been a folk saint. I'm not sure. But if you have a question, type it on in there. Try not to be too long-winded because I get this little window and it fades really quickly. Try not to ask me a question while somebody's asking me a question because I accidentally look and it screws me up. And then I'm answering two different questions in my brain. I'm getting ready for the next August 1st Witchcraft Year in a Day course. And every time I do this kind of thing, is one of the things that I do is stay in practice. I find I'm pretty in practice. and community service too. Hopefully it helps you. You help me by asking me random questions that may stump me and keep me on my toes. It's a mutual exchange kind of thing. You know, that old craft law, for everything that is taken, something must be given. That kind of thing. Give and take. Getting all kind of thumbs up. I don't think they have a thumbs down on the screen. Or maybe I just didn't get a thumbs down. Cool. But quite a good crowd. We're getting like 45 minutes, so I do like 15 minutes, but I can't do this all day, can I? So you got a couple more questions. Probably take me 15 minutes to answer a couple more questions. La Chusa, what is it? La Chusa. Okay. Hopefully you remember that. Look it up. Does one need to be initiated to be magical? Does one need to be initiated to be magical? No. Absolutely not. If you want to be a member of a group that requires initiation, you do. Is blood donation good or bad? Like donating blood?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, yeah, I was thinking in a magical context, but
No, I'm thinking like for the Red Cross or something.
yeah, God, magically speaking, I just don't want to say anything bad about the red. Make sure you're donating to a rich man. Blending your DNA with theirs might be a good idea, but God, questionable. That's something I'll need to think about a great deal, but I don't want to encourage anybody not to give blood. You can break with that blood. You do a scissors spell on your own blood, break off connections with that. Best words or wording techniques for a newbie. I say for a newbie, because I teach witchcraft, the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram. You put it up, you make sure to take it down, or you program it to take itself down. For a newbie, I'd want to start there. The oldest ritual for forming a circle that we can point to in witchcraft is absolutely borrowed from ceremonial magic. One of those things, they had it. Now, as things go on, I don't know which of the things that I was taught when I was a kid was fake lore or not. The way I was taught it, there was a lot of material left over from the times of persecution and that kind of thing, fragments of books of shadows and this kind of thing. And there were some meetings, there were some meets where a lot of witches in America met, and other witches too. And there was a lot of material that pointed towards doing this in a circle, doing that in a circle. But yet, nobody really had a ritual circle in their books of shadows. So they borrow from the ceremonialists. And we use it in a bit of a different way. The way I learned it, doing the classical banishing ritual of the pentagram, but the way witches borrowed it, we do one movement clockwise around the circle, doing a banishing earth pentagram in each quarter, and then we go clockwise, doing the typical lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, 4 different elemental invoking pentagrams, some people using the god name, some people not. So I've always done that. I've always recommended that for a newbie because that's where a lot of our ancestors got their circle. And so many magics are based on that. And even if we look at the Gardnerian circle, it's heavily using elements from the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram. And anytime you see anybody tracing pentagrams in the air with their blade, they're trying to do the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, but probably screwing it up. To where it got so screwed up that a lot of witches are doing going clockwise around the circle, doing banishing earth pentagrams, in each quarter call 4 different elements, 4 different elementals, and 4 different watchers. So the answer to your question, I would get proficient at that. Putting that up every night, taking it down every morning, because so many circles, so many processes of wards are going to utilize that. You'll be better able to figure that out because you become proficient at the LBRP. Outside of that, servitors. And I don't know if I have any videos on servitors. If you want to, go research chaos magic on how to construct a servitor. Servitors are going to be the best wards. A servitor is kind of like an artificially created familiar, but it has no life outside you. It is only born to serve your purposes and has no other existence beyond that. Protection servitors can be created. That's their job. They do nothing else. Those, I would say, would be the best wards. The others, not so much. They have things to do. Always good questions on this channel, I gotta say. We're doing Ask Uncle Birch. Got a couple more questions. If you want to secure a spot in the August 1st Year in a Day course, you got to contact me at witchschool@gmail.com, which is of course WITCHSKEWL at gmail.com. If you want to take your chances, you can go to gumroad.com/witchschool, WITCHSKEWL, on August 1st. And hopefully the class won't be full. If you want to secure a spot, you need to email me. Can the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram alone be used to banish a curse? No, I don't think so. Curses are much more complex. Maybe an early curse, maybe the one that got on you yesterday. Curses are like a festering sore. They get worse and worse and worse with time, and they never go away. And usually drive the person insane, so they never seek help. Curses can be devious. So maybe an early curse in the very early stages, but I think the lesser banishing ritual, the pentagram, followed up by some serious curse removing work. I've got 3 different versions of how to remove a curse, how to remove a hex. I think it's how to remove a curse here on this channel. You can get some ideas from that. But no, I don't think so with the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram. All right, I do a couple more questions. Then I got to do some stuff. Oh my God, I'm already 53 minutes up. Maybe 2 questions. I gotta go. So I'm looking. You're getting a lot of what are familiars traditionally? Thank you, Lisa. Familiars are not animals. Should I say it again? Familiars are not animals. They are not pets. From my research, that idea comes from the Christian church during the times of persecution. Every witch was said to have a familiar, and all of their pets were put to death with them. Their livestock was given to the neighbor that accused them of witchcraft, as was all of their property. It was very beneficial for those that accused others of witchcraft. I've seen plant familiars and I've seen familiar spirits. Tends to come more in ceremonial magic. We do see a couple witches throughout history having this kind of thing. When it was animals, it was a blood pact made between you and the animal. The animal consumed your blood. Blood pact with a spirit or a demon to create a familiar spirit. However, the thing that I want to put out there is like, I know you've seen it in Hollywood and you've seen it on Sabrina the Teenage Witch. You want to have a familiar because you think you have a familiar. A familiar is a slave. A familiar, you know, some people have done that with animals, but I wouldn't want to do that with my pets. But a familiar spirit is typically enslaved into that position by a means of spiritual torture. You know, we're talking about Solomon and stuff. Solomon had a host of weapons for this purpose. And he and other magicians of his ilk would capture these spirits or these demons in a triangle of manifestation and torture them into doing their bidding. I don't really like that kind of magic, and we tend to think that that's socially unacceptable to do that kind of thing in our modern times. Hey, times change. Slaves tend to want to overcome their oppressor one day. And there are countless tales of this happening with people's familiars. So don't be in a rush to get a familiar. Instead, that thing I just talked about a minute ago, a servitor. A servitor has no will, a servitor has no life, a servitor has no soul. You want a familiar? Create a servitor. Don't enslave some other creature or some other spirit out there. They will hold a grudge. And when the chips fall, they'll be there to take your soul. That's my take on familiars. I'll give you one more question. Hopefully it's somebody, you know, Lisa, you've gotten a bunch of questions in there. You could just ask me on Facebook. I know you're on there. But if somebody other than Lisa, or somebody other than somebody's had a bunch of questions. If you have a question more, and then I gotta go do some stuff. Tanya, what are your thoughts on discarding the leftovers from and after working spells? Well, that's part of the problem I have with people posting their spells on the internet. In addition to the negativity that they would get from the trolls out there, in addition, you know, if they have any enemies out there, that was kind of the question, you know, how the other person asked, like, some people are your enemies for no reason. Some people out there on some of these sites will throw a hex on you just for their ego alone and monitor your channel to see if it happened. I was taught that no physical components of the spell should be left behind if they can be destroyed. They should be destroyed by fire if it can be. If they can't be destroyed by fire, they should be buried. None of it should exist. There should be no drippings, no components, nothing of the spell. We're trying to force the laws of nature to compensate. We've done a lot of work to create an astral, ethereal form associated with that object of desire here on the physical plane, and we must destroy all things associated with that object of desire that we have used for the spell on this physical plane, because nature pours a vacuum and she's going to have to put something in that hole. We hope she puts in that hole the thing we wanted in that hole, and not, you know, she doesn't just give us back a sigil after we burn the sigil. You know, that takes a little bit of practice, but back when I had the brick and mortar, we had spells going all over the store all the time, and we'd collect all of the wax drippings from all of those spells, and we'd put them in a bag, and then we would use that wax to help us start the full moon fire. Had been done weeks before, suddenly manifested when we used that at the full moon ritual. I mean, we're also doing the full moon ritual with those things, and they help us to get the fire started. But I always noted movement on a whole bunch of spells when we finally removed the last of the physical components of those spells. So there'd be like a boon every full moon. Thank you all for coming. This was Uncle